Welcome to the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast with Christopher J. Harris, focusing on life, leadership, family, marriage, and the church. We are providing tools for our inspiration and wisdom for life. Our goal is to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. If you're new to us, we release a brand new podcast weekly on Thursdays. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. Here's our host, Christopher J. Harris.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Christopher J. Harris, and I'm so excited, y'all. It's the beginning of a new year. Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. It is officially 2019. Man, can y'all believe how fast 2018 flew by? If you did one blink, you might have missed it. And I can't believe one of my goals is being accomplished right before my very eyes. I said in 2015 that I wanted to start a podcast, y'all, and I didn't really move on it until 2018. And here we are. Now we're almost at the halfway mark of 50 episodes, and we'll get to 100 episodes in 2019, and it is an incredible journey. I thought it would be pretty cool and fun and insightful. There's probably going to be some laughter today, probably going to be some serious moments, probably going to be some gut check moments, going to be some aha moments today, because we are going to do a year in review. And I have some amazing friends, y'all. I'm telling you, I got some cool friends, some cool people I'm connected with, and I've got one of them. He's been on the podcast before, and I figured I'd bring him back because he's been on tour. Every time I call him, he's either on a stagecoach bus or whatever they call it, in a hotel room, in an airport, somewhere. And if he's not doing that, he's in a storage bin because his daughter is a award-winning teenpreneur. We're going to talk about that in a minute. He's just all over the place, but I'm proud of him. I'm proud to know him. Proud of all that he and his wife are doing. And so we're gonna do a year review, 2018. Let's see what happened last year. Let's see what things stood out. Let's see what we got to talk about. So everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Bowtie, Mr. Bowtie comedy himself, Michael Goodwin. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, Chris?
You joking already? Okay. That's hilarious.
Podcast. It's Christopher on the podcast.
Every Christopher everywhere, man. Listen.
It's around.
Yeah. I can tell what season of life I know somebody in based on what they call me. Yeah. And some people even ask me, like, why is it a big deal that you prefer Christopher instead of Chris? And so, you know, I kind of give a pass to people that knew me from back in the day. But
right,
if you've known me recently, or you met me in the last, like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years, I prefer Christopher because it really it represents a metamorphosis in my own life, you know. And so that's a change or a transition. It's almost like, you know, when you're growing up, I know people who, when they were smaller, they were known as like Lil Ricky, or
right.
You know,
well, that's me.
Little Charles or Little Chuck.
People from my hometown know me as Toby.
They know you as Toby?
Yeah, that's my nickname.
Okay, what's the story behind that?
Well, my middle name is Tobias, and so I guess it's easy to say Toby instead of saying Tobias.
Man, that is a biblical name if I ever heard one.
That's a fun fact that Chris didn't know. So yeah, if you know me as an adult, you know me as Mike. So when I left my hometown, I was like, nah, we done with this Toby stuff. So a lot of people that are from my hometown, even my family, will call me Toby. But
yeah. And it even has some biblical significance for me too, because from a spiritual standpoint, of course, we know that names have meaning. And you know, when you research the differences between what Chris means and what Christopher means, man, there's two different contexts and two different meanings. And just on the surface, when you call me Chris and not Christopher, you take Christ out of my name. And of course, you know, I'm trying to represent him every day, man.
Oh, that's deep. You have an Abram and an Abraham moment here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He changed my name. You hear me?
We moved from where we used to be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, man, let's jump in real fast. Let's talk about, man, 2018. It's crazy, man. When I started doing some research, getting ready for these episodes, I was blown away, man, at all the things that took place in 2018 that literally, like I literally had just forgotten about, man. My mind just kind of went like, whoa, really? That happened in 18? All of that happened in 18? Like,
Yeah, man.
what's your big takeaway? Do you have a big takeaway from last year before we jump into some of these topics?
The big takeaway is that, man, you need to maximize your time because your time is not waiting. I was at the bank and the woman asked me if I was ready for 2019. I said, I wasn't even ready for Thanksgiving. What are you talking about? 2019. So, you just said it. You talked about starting a podcast in 15, didn't start getting it done until 18. And why? Procrastination. I'm busy, whatever. Just an excuse. And you're far more savvy now as a podcaster. You've had better ideas, and that, people talk about trust the process, but you can't get better unless you're doing a process. Like, we wanted to be excellent off the top. We wanted to be the best that we've done from day one. And that's not how process works. So my big takeaway is, man, quit talking and start doing. Like, man, we're going to be sitting in 2019 talking about how fast that went.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's crazy too, man, because sometimes when we have dreams or goals or desires for things, sometimes, man, we want things to be perfect before we start it. And while I think there is incredible value in excellence, there is also incredible value on some things that you just have to kind of pull the trigger on.
Right. And it becomes excellent. You started with an excellent spirit. You know that, okay, man, it's going to be better, man. I look at my first logo, like, it was excellent for where I was, but it compared to the logo I have now, it's not even close. But that was 12 years ago. That was 13 years ago. So, man, we got to let ourselves off the hook, man, and just work. Just put in the work. So and become beautiful. We'll take ashes and make it beauty. Somebody better preach.
Yeah, man. Well, let's jump right into here. Here's an easy jump in for us, because of course, President Trump. I mean, he was in the news every single day.
Oh yeah.
Make no mistake about it. His name was in the newspaper for something every single day. And so you're a veteran. Thank you for serving
Yes,
in our armed forces. Appreciate your service in our military. One of the biggest stories this year was Kaepernick and the NFL and the kneeling. So as a soldier, what's your take on it? What has been your thoughts on this whole issue regarding the kneeling and the divisiveness, the appreciation for country, all of that. What's been your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I appreciate the dialogue. I think that before this happened, issues have always been prevalent, but it takes something to get it in the national dialogue. So I was saddened and I was excited about the honesty of the conversation. I was saddened because we're still having these conversations. Like, it's 2018 and we're having conversations that our forefathers and foremothers have had. But then I'm saddened because even in the conversation, there's a lot of deflecting from what the issues are. So it's amazing to me to kind of live through a time, like we watch documentaries on Muhammad Ali and what he did as it relates to the draft, and to live in real time and to see that, wow, this guy took this stance and it galvanized a whole movement around, really social justice and inequality. You saw people, players in the NFL, using their platform to promote unity and to promote the different things that need to help our society. I think what was interesting to me about all of it, as a soldier, that's a personal decision that I made to take the oath. And I'm often interested in how people get offended for other people. So I think when the thing first happened, was he sitting down? I think he was sitting down, and some of his teammates came and said, "Hey, man, this is," especially some service members said, "Hey, this is disrespecting the flag. This is disrespecting." And I think Kaepernick said, "That's not my intent. So I'll kneel." So kneeling became, I think the initial thing was a thing of honor, but folks were like, "No, that's still disrespectful." So I think in terms of my love of country, my love of all things athletics, I love when folks utilize their platform to bring about change. Whether I agree, disagree, I enjoy folks feeling passionate about an issue, on a topic, and standing. So I respected what Kaepernick did, especially when he made the adjustment to take a knee as opposed to just sitting on the bench. But there have been some people that have elevated their platform just by attacking him. So it's interesting to me how you can take one topic and make it something to be about not even what it is about, much to do about nothing. It's like, oh, that's disrespecting the troops. And then you have troops saying, no, that's not disrespect. Those are the freedoms that we fight for. We fought for a Kaepernick to have the ability. Now, whether or not you agree with that, that's fine. But the freedom is extended to what better example to extend freedom to than for somebody to use their platform. And I mean, I don't know, that was just and it's still unresolved. Kaepernick's still not playing, and the quarterbacks get hurt every week. Yeah. And you can't tell me that the guys that get jobs are better than Kaepernick. So I think that it's brought a discussion to the forefront that needed to be brought. And I think that I like it. I like all about it. I like the bad about it. I like the good about it. I like the divisiveness about it. I like the unity that's come out of it. Because I just said earlier, you don't get to where you ought to be without a process.
So it's interesting, though, because, I think, as you just said, we're still not at a resolution. I've been intrigued at how we have allowed individuals to, in my mind, define in a short-sighted way what patriotism really is and what it looks like. But because I think we have different definitions of patriotism, and I think it's very clear. Like even when you look at Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, I think we have a tale of two countries, and that doesn't mean that either one loves the country less. I think it means that we've got two different experiences, and at some point, I believe that we have to become mature enough as a people, as a country, as a democracy, to build the bridge towards solutions. As you said, we're still not there. And so it's interesting, though, because on the backdrop of that, two other things happened this year that I think tie right into what we're talking about. And that is that April represented the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. And so, of course, the resurgence of lots of his speeches and lots of things that he stood for, lots of things that he stood against even. And so there was, a resurgence of debate about economics, and lots of his sit-ins and boycotts were around the issue of economic equality. the reality of him being against the Vietnam War, and that's really when it became an issue of him being tracked by the FBI and other things that were going on there. The issue of his legacy, whether or not we can respect his legacy, and some of the insinuation or accusation that there were extramarital affairs and things like that. That all came to the surface. So you had a lot of debate going on, and of course this is during the off season, right? So this is I think one of the major conversations that took place this year was the conversations around race and what that means. I mean, I Googled this, Mike, and I was blown away at the number of articles this year that dealt with redlining and gerrymandering and gentrification just in 2018, man. So some deep stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you said it earlier. I think the new president has emboldened some people to use language in a way that I don't know how productive it is. I think there's an issue that happens where we say political correctness to some degree is counterproductive. When you're so concerned and you're so trying not to offend, well, there's going to be conflict. You're going to say things that people are not going to agree with. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. If I say something that you don't agree with, that don't mean I'm not right about it. That just means that we have a conflict. So to get to the place, I think, in society where folks felt like we were using kid gloves with adult, I think that's where the president brought this, I guess, breath of fresh air of just candidness and saying what he felt and not having to try to figure out what side. But I think in that, it causes some people to use their issues as a stick, as opposed to opportunity to have some significant dialogue. I don't have a problem with conflict if conflict is moving towards a resolution. If you just want to be combative just for the sake of divisiveness, then we got a problem. Like, I don't mind working through conflict, but I think some people are just in like trolls. I think that they're modern day trolls in real life. And so I think that talking about race is interesting that that's the case after having 8 years of an African-American president. I don't know how productive the conversation has been, but I do believe that, I think similar to the scripture, like some people preach for a variety of reasons. But as long as the gospel's preached, there's going to be benefit that comes out of it. And I think that's the same conversation that happens around race. The way that it's on the national stage, and you got to pick a side. You got to know, how you feel about it. My biggest concern for my life is my children, helping them navigate through a world that judges them by the color of their skin and what all that implications of that.
So, Mike, you said the word trolls, and it made me think about something. This is serious topics, but this what I'm about to say is probably going to be a little funny. So, I learned this year, 2018, how visceral and how serious these trolls are online.
Right.
So there's this gentleman that his name is Christopher Harris, African-American gentleman, very low haircut, and he goes on this talk television show. I'm not going to say which station or any of that. And it's a national show. And so earlier this year, I have a Facebook page. I have a personal Facebook page, but then I have a public profile, public figure page. And by the way, I invited anybody that's listening to this, go like my page, Christopher J. Harris. You can find me on Facebook. So shameless plug. So I average, I know what my average is on a weekly basis of how many new likes I get.
Right.
So one day I'm sitting in my office and all of a sudden, I get this alert from Facebook to check my account, like maybe it's being spammed. Because in this, like within about 30 minutes, I got several hundred new likes on my page, right? So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm getting spammed. Maybe somebody hacked my account or something. So I go in, and not only is it these new likes, but it's all of these messages in the inbox. So I start going through the inbox, and it's like, oh, brother, we love what you're saying, and you're telling it correct. And, and then some of the messages had, laced with profanity and laced with, certain statements that were very, had lots of racial overtones with them and, all of that. So I'm like, man, what in the world is going on? And then people started tagging me in the man's videos of him on this show.
On the show, okay.
So I'm like, they think I'm him. These people think I'm him. Now, I got to tell you, man, what his platform, I don't agree with it.
It's polar opposite to what you.
I don't agree with it. Right? And there's a joke that we say sometimes, all the black men look alike, I get it. Man, me and this brother I don't think we look anything alike. Plus, I think I'm a bit more handsome than he is.
Right.
But nonetheless, I'm not trying to put him down in any way. So
have you talked to him?
Huh?
Have you had conversations with him?
Man, I did. I inboxed him, man, and said, hey, brother, I need for you to use your middle initial or something, man, because this is listen, man, this is intense.
Oh man.
So listen, so I can tell. So this was like in maybe like March. So literally he goes on the show at least 3 times a month. So I can tell
when he on there talking that talk.
I can tell during each month, every time he goes on, because my likes go up, my inbox messages go up, the whole 9 yards, man.
So do some people hang out? Do they stay or they get out of there once they realize that this ain't the guy?
Well, so I have a standard message that I send to everybody. I send them to my books. I send them to my podcast. I send them to, to my website, all of that. And, I have some that stay. I have quite a few that leave, though.
Leave in mass.
Yeah, man. Yeah. If you want to stay for the party, come on, stay for the party.
Yeah, let's have some. And that's my issue with Kaepernick, with the president. Let's have real dialogue. Let's not emotionally engage. And again, it's difficult to have a conversation that affects you that's not emotion, is not apparent.
Yeah.
However, I want to discuss number one, explain my perception, because everyone has a different orientation of life, and you said it earlier. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. We talk about in the African American community the ideal of double consciousness, and I just started. I think it's called the Woke Church by Pastor Mason. He's talking about triple consciousness. Like, Lord, how many more levels do we have? So he has where you're African American, you're double conscious. You have your heritage, your experience in this society as an African American, but also you're an American. You hear the national anthem, and you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you read the Constitution, but there's a separateness of that really wasn't created for me. They didn't have me in mind when we celebrate the 4th of July. I talk to my children about where the country was in 1776 and how what class or what was our status as African Americans. And then I kind of walk them back through the history of America.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Let me pause as you talk about this really fast though, and say to people that may be listening to this, if you are not familiar with what double consciousness is, it is actually something I think would further your education and insight. If you are a person of color, you definitely need to know what it is. If you're not a person of color, you should also know what it is, because it gives you insight into the world of those who are different than you. And for the most part, people of color have to live in two worlds at the same time. So when Mike is talking about this idea of double consciousness, Mike, let's just do this really fast, and I want you to get back to your example. But let's just give those that are listening, let's give some examples of double consciousness so people understand what it is, and I'll kick off. Right. So one example may be is that if you talk a certain way around your family, if you're African American and your family, y'all are joking around and having a good time hanging around the house, the way that you may talk, and we'll say things like slang or ebonics or whatever you may want to say. Double consciousness suggests that when we get into professional environments, we can't talk that way because culturally you may be deemed as uneducated or unlearned and unprofessional, or even, dare I say, quote unquote, ghetto.
Right.
Yep. What's some other examples that we could give people to help them understand what this idea of double consciousness is?
Key and Peele has done some interesting comedy work on it. So I'm sure there's a meme or something you've seen where the president, when Barack Obama was the president, how he would greet an African-American person versus a non-African-American person. So you see him dap with the hug, my man, pull him in close, and then he sees a non-African-American, he gives him a good solid, hey, how's it going, Jimmy? How you doing, Sam?
Yeah.
So it's just that cultural expression of
code switching.
I'm comfortable. Code switching is another, when I'm comfortable, I'm using this particular, I'm giving you dap. I'm not shaking your hand. I'm dapping you up. Like I'm giving you a pound.
Yeah.
So that's another.
Fist bump.
Fist bump. A quick example of double consciousness. I think that, anytime I'm in a, again, similar to the 4th of July, my kids' school have these different programs, and they honor veterans. And so I listen to the songs America and God Bless America. And I'm seeing him from an American where I'm a patriot, I love my country, but I'm also thinking of the folks who've come before me who've not been able to sit in some of the seats that I sit in, drink out of the water fountains that I've drinking out of, simply because the way that our country was systematically founded. It's not, that people like to, like I said, non-whites, non-blacks often say, I'm not a racist, or I'm not the one that's doing oppression. The system is built with oppression in it. There's oppression built into the system. So whether or not you are actively contributing to it, it's like gratuity is included. So racism is included in the price of the American experience. It's just, and it's in there for us.
That's it, man. That is it, man. If there's something in terms of the conversations that we've been having in 2018 around race, whether that's on a local level, meetings that I've been in, whether it's on a national conversation, man, like anybody that is, and we're going to use this term, right? Anybody that is woke, like they will tell you and they will have this understanding, like, because, immediately non-black, I said it too, non-blacks, they immediately say, but I'm not a racist. And the conversation has to shift from this personal conversation to understanding that systemically, if you are not advocating for the system to change, then you are aiding a system that was built off of in imbalance, if you would. I had a group of people to get very upset at me because I was on this panel, and I respect everybody. I respect everybody, regardless of race, regardless of class, regardless of sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. And we may have faith or theological differences. We may have, moral differences, but I'm going to respect you. And that's my disclaimer to what I'm about to say, right?
Right.
And that is that there is no group of people, there's no other group of people on U.S. soil that has the history of being enslaved other than African Americans. And so that fact alone, in my mind, changes the dynamic of the conversation around how we approach people of color and how our legal system and our educational system and all of those things need to change. I mean, back to the conversation around the fact that this is Dr. King's 50th anniversary, and we're still dealing with issues where, African Americans, the value of their homes living in the same neighborhood, upper middle class or middle class neighborhood, is of a lower value. So I remember when we were getting ready to sell our first house, my wife and I were getting ready to sell our first house, the realtor told us, take all the pictures out of you and your family. Only put, abstract art in the house. And we're like, why? Because if people walk in the house and see that it belongs to African Americans, there is research that suggests that they will be least likely to buy the home. I was blown away. Right? I was absolutely blown away. But these are realities that are going on. You got reality
into the system. That's a real thing.
It's not.
You've experienced that from a negative side. Right.
And this is, people would say, well, that's just your situation. No, after it keeps happening and after there's research, and that's another thing that I think this year, it really, the history of our country, I think, started really bubbling up to the surface, where we realized from an educational system standpoint, we were not or have not been taught history properly. It was interesting because this year, my family and I, we went to Washington, D.C. on vacation. And we wanted our kids to have a chance to, go on all the tours. So the Smithsonian's and, the National African Museum. By the way, I would encourage anybody, if you haven't seen it, you need to go see the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. We went to the Supreme Court. We went to the U.S. Capitol. We went to the White House. We did all of that. And so while we were doing the tour of the Capitol, the tour guide, who, by the way, she was amazing.
Right.
But she said that they just, this is 2018, Mike, so listen to this. 2018, they just have now gotten to a place where the tour guides have permission to acknowledge, right, to simply acknowledge that slaves built the Capitol. 2018. This is fact. This is history. Ain't nobody make this up. So I asked her, I said, why did we just now get to that place? And she said very candidly, that our congressional leaders didn't want to open up that can of worms.
Well, you remember when the former First Lady Michelle Obama said that? Oh my goodness, you would have thought she said
that slaves built the White House. Yeah,
you would have thought, and black folks were like, we thought that was common knowledge.
Yeah.
We thought everybody knew that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else built it? But
there's some African Americans that don't know it.
True.
Yeah. Hey. So speaking of that, so Mike, what's up with all these folks? What's up with all these folks that's trying to stop these African Americans from getting in their own houses? What's up with all of that this year? That was a common news theme in 2018.
What do you mean getting in their own houses?
So you got these folks that are literally stopping African Americans from getting into their apartment,
like apartment places,
their houses, their condos.
Well, it started with who's the dude? Gates, Skip Gates. A minute ago with President
Beergate.
They had the Beergate, right. So that was just a precursor. It's a precursor of what to come.
Well, if that's the case, in April of this year, of 2018, the Starbucks situation, boy, that was big news. That was big news.
And the problem becomes
drinking coffee while black.
You can't drive while black. You can't drink coffee while black. You can't be at a party while being black. And what we want,
Barbecue Becky.
barbecue while in the public park, like we want everyone to experience justice and freedom for all. Like we just want to be part of the all. We really want to be part of the all. And I think that there's a common sentiment that African Americans enjoy being enslaved or being oppressed because it gives us something to talk about. Like we just want to talk. We want to stir the pot. We want to keep this stuff going. And I'm like, no, man, this breaks my heart, man. I want to talk about the game. I want to talk about my car mileage, my gas mileage. I want to talk about the muta grass that I put in my front yard. I want to talk about that stuff. I want to talk about the stuff.
You want to talk about the weather too. That's
the weather. I want to talk about what I had for dinner and what fine restaurant I just found. We don't get to that. By the time I get down my timeline, I want to go back to bed, man. I'm like, man, I can't watch another black person get killed online. Like, I just can't. I can't do it. And until there's an outrage about that, as the same as there's an outrage about taking a knee, as there are outrage about guns, it just becomes exhausting because, we've been like, hey, man, we've been telling y'all, I liken African Americans to the canary in the mine. They say miners take the canary down to let you know when the air is getting thin. And I think that somebody wrote a book about that. Using our community as we are the ones that are like, hey man, it's some wrong stuff out here. Like when you look at the opioid epidemic, we just saw that with crack cocaine. Like this is the same thing. If we would have addressed crack cocaine like we addressed opioids, our community would be better. There would not be this mass incarceration explosion.
And now you have the federal government saying we messed up with the crack cocaine situation. Exactly. Sorry, y'all. Well, you're saying sorry, but doggone it, it's 20 years after somebody done spent their life in jail. Their career is destroyed. Their families are broken apart, right? And so, we could spend the rest of this year talking about race. So let's pause just for a minute. Because I got some people listening to this probably like, here we go again.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Black dudes.
Yeah. So let's flip the conversation.
Race betas. That's funny to me. Like people get these terms. Race betas.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it's not race baiting when it happens. We don't bring it up. Y'all bring it up.
I ain't bait nothing. I don't eat fish. I just tell you what I see out here in the world.
So speaking of that, you mentioned the word earlier. I thought you were getting ready to segue into this. Man, the conversation around guns this year was a big deal.
Yeah. And here, this is why I am, Chris. I'm thinking about purchasing a gun. Like, I mean, I'm more so. There was a time in my life I was like, I probably, and again, I'm a former military, so I have no apprehension around weaponry. But I'm wondering if someone were to break into my home, what do I have to protect my family with?
Wow. Man, so you had the Parkland shooting to take place. 17 people were killed. Later on in the year, we had the Pittsburgh synagogue.
Was Vegas this year?
Yes, sir. So that's so when you think about it, right? So if you just Google in 2018 the number of shootings that took place and the term that they use. Here, let me find this really fast. It's the list of mass shootings in the United States, and what they're using as a benchmark or definition. A mass shooting tracker is 4+ shot in one incident at one location at roughly the same time. The Gun Violence Archive, that is 4+ people shot in one incident, excluding the perpetrator at one location at roughly the same time, right? So when you look at this, man, I mean, if you start back in January, man, I mean, I'm scrolling. You start in January 1st in Huntsville, Alabama, January 4th, Brinkley, Arkansas, January 5th, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, January 7th, Plantation, Florida, January 7th, Union Springs, Alabama, January 11th, St. Robert, Missouri, January 12th, Nashville, Tennessee, January 14th, Madison, Alabama. I mean, I keep going on and on and on and on. Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois, Orlando, Florida, Benton, Kentucky, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., Bowling Green, Kentucky, Los Angeles, Indianapolis, man, just on and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, man, what is the deal with guns? Like, what's the answer, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation, which I'm not as informed about, is I guess the ban on assault rifles is part of the motivation around, and then even saying that there needs to be a waiting period.
Yeah, I feel like every time I listen to the discussion and to the debate and among the research that I've done, I just feel like people are saying, you want to take away my right to have a weapon, when I think there's several issues for me. Number one, a sensible debate doesn't take away your weapon, but I think we all got to agree there's certain weapons that just should not be on the street. Number two, I think that there is, and again, I don't mean to bring race into it, but it's a reality of the discussion. I think that there's a difference in the conversation when race is entered in about gun protection and gun rights, because if you have two different races of people walking down the street with an AK-47 behind their back, hanging over their shoulder, I think culture and society are going to look at them differently.
Right.
So I like, man, it's and then this whole debate about teachers with guns. Like, my wife is in a school system, right? My wife is in a school system. My kids are in schools. Right. I don't know if I want their math teacher walking around with a semi-automatic rifle.
Right.
It's like, really, man?
Yeah, they got enough going on.
I
think the conversation, I know where I kind of clock out. I mean, I think we need to have common sense gun laws, but also we also need to increase our security measures. So, and I feel like we can do all of these things. I mean,
it doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah, I don't feel like I don't think anybody is going to ask for your weapons unless you got like a semi-automatic saw. Like, why would you have a saw at your house? Why would you have a military grade weapon at your home? Who are you defending? What are you defending? Like I'm talking about a personal handgun. I'm not talking about on an armory.
I was about to say, man, because lots of people, man, they got a basement that's got like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of military grade weapons, and I'm like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I think we should have common sense. I mean, and I think that that it becomes these sound bites of common sense gun laws. I mean, I think 80% of the country would want that. I mean,
and this doesn't even bring up the conversation around mental health. That's
right.
Another conversation. You got someone that's got bona fide, authenticated mental health realities that they're dealing with, and we're absolutely not making light of it because it's it's a reality of our world, the world that we live in. But that shouldn't. I mean, like, we got to figure this out, man. And I think we got to get to a place where people are really willing, to figure it out. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Part one of our conversation where we are reviewing 2018. Yeah. So I'm so honored and so thankful to have my brother, Michael Goodwin, Bowtie Comedy, on the podcast with me. And of course, this is just the beginning of the conversation. We waited a little deep into the dialogue around race and politics. We're going to cover some other stuff next week. You want to tune in for that. We just wanted to give you something to think about, something to ponder, just to reflect upon how much stuff took place in 2018. Well, we expand the net. We expand the dialogue, expand the conversation. Next week, as we dig into more of a recap of 2018, even we talk about some of the people who passed away in 2018. Man, just amazing to see some of the life transitions that took place last year. We're going to talk about some of our personal stuff that happened in 2018. And wow. Yeah, you want to tune in for it. And then guess what, guys? After that, we're going to start talking about habits, New Year's resolutions, how to get into healthy routines, all of that stuff as we conclude January 2019 episodes. It's going to be incredible dialogue. Can y'all do me a favor? Can y'all share this podcast with other people? Please help me spread the word. Our announcer is going to come and give you some more information. I look forward to seeing you, talking with you next week. You know how I end it every single week. Live wisely.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Wise Idea Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. We hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did and would like additional resources and information, you can find the previous episodes, show notes, featured guest information, and more at www.thewiseideapodcast.com. We also invite you to join the conversation on social media. The Wise Idea Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook. Find us at The Wise Idea and at our Facebook group, The Wise Idea Podcast. On Instagram, find us at The Wise Idea Podcast. Our host is also on social media. You can find him regularly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, all located at CJ Harris 1. Finally, if you enjoyed what you've heard, head over to iTunes and or Google Play and leave a rating and review for other listeners to find us. Our podcast is also on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you the next time. Live wisely.
Get understanding.